Hi, welcome to my channel, a place for the culturally woke. I started this channel called Content You Should Have Learned because I am referencing the American education system. I've, through conversations with friends and family, come to realize just how much we learn outside of the classroom. And I think a lot of that learning should be brought into the classroom. And I say that as an educator that's been teaching for about 7 years in the early childhood space. And I think that we intentionally have cut a lot out of our children's education, and I have no idea why our curriculum has become so heavily colonized and so skewed against people of color and so skewed against women. So this channel is my attempt to kind of decolonize that in this space. So if you found your way here, that means you probably want to learn some things that you should have probably learned already in your K through 12 experience. And when I say things you should have learned in school, I'm referring to the K through 12 education that you're technically like mandated to go to. It's the school everyone should expect to receive for free, because everybody has to go to school. So public or private education, most people have gone, K through 12 or at least to high school. And there's a lot that they don't teach us in that time. So even if you learned something in college or graduate school or after that, you can comment below and I might use it in a future episode. So after you watch this episode, tell me some things you wish you would have learned, because my first couple episodes are based on things that friends told me they wish they had learned in school. And even through just asking that question, I learned so much stuff that I didn't learn in school. So this channel is for the culturally woke and for those ready to decolonize this curriculum, baby. All right, so today's episode, we are going to start off by talking about Bayard Rustin. So if you've never heard of Bayard Rustin, I could not be less surprised, because he's not a person we talk about at school. He was an African-American man, he was gay, and he was a major part of the civil rights movement. That's right, the civil rights movement involved more people than just Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. Honestly, if you just went through a traditional K through 12 teaching scenario, again, public or private, those are probably two of the only people that you really heard about. So let's talk about Bayard. Why have you never heard of him? Why was he cut from curriculum? And I don't subscribe to the idea that it's an accident that we don't learn about certain people in school, that we don't learn about many people of color or many women. That's a very intentional choice to colonize the curriculum and cut all of that out. So why did they cut Bayard? I'm going to venture a guess to say that it's because he was gay. He was a major part of the civil rights movement. He was Martin Luther King Jr.'s right-hand man. He helped plan the March on Washington. He's the one that made sure that the mall was full of people. He got the word out about it. This was before social media, so he had to be extra smart and do it the old-fashioned way and drum up attention and make sure that there were people there. And he was a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant mind, and there's just been such an intense amount of erasure from our curriculum based on the fact that people maybe aren't the ideal candidate to be spoken about. So I figured, since it's Pride Month and because of all the Black Lives Matter protests that are occurring right now, Bayard is the perfect example of intersectionality of all of those issues. And he was an incredibly important person, and he got cut. So I wanted to give him his proper due on my channel and in this episode. So and you know what? It's kind of interesting because the civil rights movement was not all that long ago. People like to make it seem like it happened a lot longer ago than it did. It was really the 60s. So a lot of people that were around then are still around now and can tell you all about it. But they like to make it sound like it was a really long time ago and things were different then. It's not like that anymore. Really? Because he was kind of left out of the civil rights movement. He wasn't given a lot of attention at the time because he was gay, and they could only take on one issue at a time. They had to decide, are we going for racial equality or are we going for equality for the LGBTQ plus community at this moment? And they decided to go for racial equality. So they kind of tucked Bayard away and didn't really give him his just due. And we're still doing that today. I didn't learn about this man until I was in my late 20s. My late 20s. I never came across his name in a history book. And that makes no sense to me. But we have this channel just until we can get those textbooks corrected. Because when I was coming up, they were still talking about how Columbus discovered America. Blech. No, that man didn't discover anything, but that's a different episode. So this episode's about Bayard Rustin and his significance to the culture and the fact that he was hidden then because he's gay. And guess what? He's kind of still being hidden now because he's gay. Not great. Not great. So I wanted to bring some attention to Bayard, and also I'm interested in hearing what else people would like to know about, or people that I could bring attention to, people I could talk about more, talk about their contributions to history more. One final shout out to Bayard. He was unapologetically gay. He was very openly out. He was arrested for it several times alongside his civil disobedience. So he was a really powerful example of intersectionality, and he's the one that we should be talking about in school. So please share this with your children. Please share this with anybody you know that's in school. Have them bring it up to their teachers. We have to really infiltrate this curriculum. That's the conclusion that I've come to. So we just have to start talking about people outside of white men, because they're running the show right now, and I am not here for it. So thank you for watching episode 1. Please comment below if there's something that you think I should bring attention to, something you wish you had learned in school but hadn't. I have some episodes coming up on personal finance, which is not something that's taught in schools, which makes no sense because that's something you need to know to exist in the world, is how to keep your money. And how to write a check, not really things that they teach. So I have an episode coming up on finance. I have episodes coming up on civil disobedience, on Anne Frank. I have a lot of episodes coming up to bring some attention to things we should have learned in school, or content we should have learned in school. And some, like with Anne Frank, I'm going to discuss things that we learned about her, and also some things that we didn't, that were intentionally cut out. And we need to stop saying left out. These things were not left out of the curriculum. They were cut out of the curriculum. They've been removed from our curriculum that we use to teach our children. And I want to infiltrate that, and I want to stop that. I want to stop that intentional cutting of information, because if you're going to tell a story, which is what history is, it's a story. It's a story of how we all got here, how our country came to be, how our nation came to be. You have to tell the whole story. You can't just tell the parts that you like or the parts that make you look good. So I'm trying to tell the full story of American history and just history as a whole, human history. So please tell me if there's something that you learned later in life, or when you were in college or grad school or after, that you really felt like you should have known about earlier, and that would have maybe shaped your perspective on things a little differently. Because at the end of the day, that's why they're cutting so much from this curriculum, is because they want to shape students' minds to see things a certain way, instead of letting children come to their own conclusions and their own beliefs, which is what I believe education should be. And you can only do that if you have all the information. So episode 1 was all about Bayard, and in the coming episodes, we're going to talk about all kinds of things, people, subjects that should have been learned in school. But please look up Bayard Rustin if you'd like to know more about him, and if you had never heard of him before, because that's content you should have learned. That's that about that.